what they're really using. Yeah.
I should ask them.
You should ask them, you know, if they could name the chemicals. So you have it right there. Tetrachloroethylene is the culprit. Next one, please.
So what do you do if you don't want to go to the dry cleaners and the clothing says, like sweaters, it must be dry clean?
Wash with cold water and block them.
Yeah, yeah. You can use full light too, right? You know, the things that.
Squish them, don't want to get too dirty. Cold water, squish them, rinse them, and then just lay them out. And, yeah, before you do it, you measure it out, measure the shoulders and the length and the sleeves.
What do you use for a cleaning agent?
Well, yeah, running miles, so.
A mile sweat?
Very good.
Is good.
Good. Thank you. And next one, please. So a nitrate comes from agriculture. And so here's a satellite photograph, and you can see the dark green shows up the nitrates that's going into our water system. And next one, please. So I don't know if you also noticed, this is also from the EPA, what's being regulated. You notice there's alpha particle in the drinking water also. And that's from radium from our ground. So our groundwater has its own issues, right? So surface water from the state projects got issues. Groundwater's has got its issues, right? So even if you mix a cocktail, you're just mixing different kinds of chemicals that you're drinking, different problems, yeah. Choose your poison, right? Next one. So I'm also, this is again EPA, I'm just using very, very conservative information, and all of you can sort of go look about that information on your own. Here's the website. Yes?
Is bottled water better?
Well, that's our next thing.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you for bringing that up. So this is exactly what we're going into. Thank you, thank you. Next one, please. So it's bottled the next thing. Obviously, most of people think so. If you look at the sales of bottled water, right, it's gone. In fact, this is the latest chart that I was able to find, because I like to find graphic information. So this is it's gone a lot higher in 2007 and 2008. It was close to 9 billion gallons of water. So obviously, people think this is the solution, right? So next slide is, well, take a look at this chart and tell me, do you think that is the solution? I don't know how well you can see it.
No, not required. Disinfection.
Yeah.
And you pay for that. You pay more than you pay for gas. You pay for this, right? So, and some of you, yeah, if you calculate the cost of bottled water, it's more expensive than gasoline. Now, some of you were here last time with us. We talked about, so the difference is also drinking water from your town is regulated by the EPA, by the water department, right? So lots of laws regulating it. They do have standards for them. But bottled water is not governed by the same agency. Bottled water is governed by the FDA. Some of you were here when I communicated my conversation with the officer from FDA, yeah? Basically, what they said, someone who was here last time?
You're talking about how he got back to you?
Yeah. Basically, they don't test and they don't know what's in anything. In fact, there's one person in the entire country who's in charge of bottled water, and that is only one of his jobs. And nobody does any testing, so no one really knows what's in bottled water.
Do they put something in bottled water to make it taste better? Because my preference is that it tastes better than tap water.
They might taste better to you, and it could be psychological. I'm not saying that is the case. People have done a lot of wine testing. People really can't tell the difference between. They think they can, but the tests are showing that most people can't tell the difference. And one of my favorite story is that this one company, he sinks a well next to a parking lot, which is next to a Superfund site. And he takes that water and he bottles it and sells it under 10 different brand names.
It's legal, right? What he's doing.
It's totally legal. Well, actually, it's not. There's a lot of issues like who owns the water. And does anybody, if you own the land or you own the water in the ground, can you just pump it and sell it? Actually, Coca-Cola, big companies like that, in a lot of lawsuits with many different residents, like I think it's Minnesota, Coca-Cola's, Michigan, they're pumping groundwater and the people's wells are drying up, farmlands are becoming non-productive, and they just go back and forth in the courts, and then just keep pumping that water out, bottling it, selling it, and shipping it back to Michigan. And they continue to win the law cases in court. And they make billions of dollars.
You know, bottled water, like outside of Multiplying Crystal Geyser, I mean, you would not go backpacking without treating the water that you're drinking from the streams for garden. Giardia, right? But you can buy that and they don't have to do anything to it.
Exactly. Let me see.
Backpacking and not treat that water, filter it before I drink it.
Do you know
Let me
Crystal
see.
Geyser?
Let me see if it's in the next slide. Let me see.
Oh, yeah.
Here it is. Is that the one you're talking about?
Very remote location, it's not like.
So they advertise what? Mountain spring water. They are sorry, Alpine. Sorry.
It is a lot of it.
No, not at all.
Is, you know, snow runoff.
They actually are pumping it from the ground. They're not just even taking it on the surface. And I put it right next to Owen's dry lake bed, which is on the edge of dry lake bed. You've driven by it many times. You've seen it, right? It's right next to the dry lake bed, and they're pumping it out of the ground. So we have diverted water from Owens Valley. We've dried this lake nearly 100 years ago. And within 10 years of diverting water to Los Angeles, this lake went bone dry. It was huge. Legal battles are still going on, but they are still pumping water from the ground in the same area. So a lot of really ancient trees are actually dying because the ground level water is lowering because we're pumping out the groundwater, both taking it to Los Angeles and bottling it, selling it. And I've called them so many times, can I come and have a tour of your plant? Because we go on field trips there all the time. They never answer my phone call. They don't answer emails. They don't answer anything.
Plus the lake bed's very polluted.
It's very polluted. So they used to grow food there. So that lake bed is completely filled with all kinds of chemicals, you know, from fertilizers, and it's going into the ground. They're pumping it and selling it to you.
It doesn't taste good. I mean, I don't like it.
So according to the Pacific Institute, that we use 6.84 billion gallons of water in bottled water in 2006. And what that means, they've done the calculation, what that means it translates into 9,000 tons of plastic was required to bottle that much water. Next one. And then in order for the energy, I'm not talking about the material that make the plastic, just the energy that's required to make that plastic consumes 17 million barrels of oil. We're not including transportation, just the amount of energy that's required to produce the bottles themselves. Next one.
You mean petroleum? Because plastic has petroleum in it too.
Yeah, but we're not counting any of that. We're just counting the energy that's required. And that amount of energy put this much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And in order to make 6.86 billion gallons of water, we take a lot more water because making the bottles takes water. All the processing takes water. So for each bottle of water, you're looking at 3 times as much of water being consumed. So the total amount of water being consumed is really 20.6 million. It's billion. It's a mistake. Billion gallons. And what I've done is to translate that into something that we can relate to, 20-something billion gallons of water, what's that mean? So what I did is I translated into an acre foot. Does everybody know what an acre foot is? Can you help us?
An acre foot is a foot squared, so a foot longwise a foot. Length by width, that's what it is. Length by width. We're talking about volume.
Okay, Thank you. It's volume. You're absolutely right. So what an acre foot is, an acre of land filled with a foot of water. So I try to translate it into an acre foot, an acre of land filled with a foot of water. So a football field is about 1.3 acre. So I try to convert it into it. So what that means is, again, it's billion and not million, billion of gallons. It would cover 48,608,000 football fields with 1 foot of water. That was the amount of water that was consumed in producing bottled water in 2006. Yeah.
Would it help to boil our water like
Yes, it would.
used to do?
Yes, it would. So a big group of chemicals are called volatile organic compounds, like the dry cleaning chemicals. And if you boil them, they're volatile. So if you boil them, they actually goes into the air.
Oh.
No, that's the reality that we have to deal with. You're absolutely right, right? So next one, please. Hit it again, and it will show the whole thing. Okay. So, so I know this is not a class, but what I really like to is get everybody's having a conversation and really start thinking about the things that we've looked at and talking about. So what I really like you to do is talk to your neighbors and what do you get from this picture? What do you think I'm trying to say here? What do you get from this? Or what have you gotten from our conversation so far this morning? Like really, I'm really interested for all of us to really start having a conversation and really start thinking about these issues. Right? So what do you get from this visual, or what do you get from this discussion we've had so far?
Plastics are not going away.
By the way, this is not in some third world country. This is the mouth of Los Angeles River. Where it comes out of Long Beach. Huh?
All that junk is floating in the water?
This is the LA River. Yeah. So the plastics aren't going away. So when you make them, and it's actually worse than not going away because they don't biodegrade, but they photodegrade. What that means, they break down into little pieces and they get into your food chain. So, and then you eat it. Yes. So what else you, yes?
And if you do your, well, obviously that tells me that some people aren't doing their part in recycling. So if you do your part in recycling, shouldn't that contribute to something better?
Thank you for bringing up recycling. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I was sitting on a jury one time and I learned a lot. It was about environmental crime. So recycling doesn't really work because the plastic, when you melt the plastic, to recycle the plastic, 1 ton of plastic costs $4,000. And the material you get sells for $32.
So there's not much incentives.
So even though, so what happened in the crime case was really interesting. Some people got really smart about it. They know, hey, there's a problem here. So even when the government collects it in the recycling center, they don't deal with it. They sell it to people for like dirt cheap because they don't want to deal with it. So they just went and buy it and they take it back to the recycling center and around they were making millions and millions of dollars. And I found out there's huge divisions, federal, state, and city in environmental crime. They're not going out checking on people, oh, are you polluting? They're checking out how you're cheating the system, right? And not about, policing at all. Actually no funding, no way of policing people in terms of really illegally dumping things. So that's really sad. Good job! Ooh, let's start! So this is
Force them to put them in different containers.
This is why, good for you. This is why we want to have this conversation. We need to talk some more. Let's have a PCC fantastic organization.
When I was, around the time my brother was born, 96, I lived in Arcadia. There was a big lawsuit in Arcadia against a whole bunch of companies that were dumping into Arcadia's water supply. And that's still going on. And my family joined that lawsuit because my mom came here from North Dakota, and then as soon as she came here, she developed a heart murmur, and we're not sure why, and we think it might be in the water. And then my brother also has a heart murmur from birth. And when all this was happening, the polluting, that was when my brother was born. So we don't know if it correlates to anything, but we were part of the lawsuit, and that's still going on. I mean, there's still, I think, 2 more companies, really large corporations that are in court right now for that same joint lawsuit. So that was happening.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Yeah, it's still going on. Absolutely. Right. So what else? What do you get from this? Is it really possible to have crystal clean drinking water if the world is really polluted?
Very difficult.